Rebecca sat by the window as the storm raged outside, watching the large snowflakes spin and dance in the strong winds. Something was making the woman feel bad. She wasn't happy at all. Why did I move here at all? Why did I listen to Floyd? And this is what I get out of it. With a sad expression on her face, Rebecca thought as she quickly wiped away a tear. The problem, though, was that the woman had previously called Chicago home. There, she met Floyd Thompson, a stranger from out of town who immediately won her heart. After dating for about 6 months, the two young people made the commitment to move in together. Rebecca was a renter at the time, so the man suggested that she move in with him. As a young woman, Rebecca had a crush on Floyd because he was from a quaint Illinois town. What more could a nearly 22-year-old woman want from her loving and attentive boyfriend? Sadly, the young couple's once blazing passion cooled as soon as they tied the knot and settled into married life. Rebecca, finding it difficult to find work in her small town, took a job as a sales associate at a roadside stand, where the charming proprietor quickly fell under her spell. Spencer Williams, a 40-something married man, was widely known to be a scumbag whore. Although Rebecca made it clear early on that she did not approve of the store owner's hints, the philanderer showed no sign of changing his behavior. Basically, Spencer persisted in his harassment of the woman, becoming more insistent each time she tried to avoid him. "Why do you want to fight this? I'll still get what I want." Spencer kept bothering the girl in a dark, stuffy back room. He said, "None of the workers have ever been able to make me look like a fool. Mr. Wallace, you may have forgotten that I'm married, but even if you hadn't, I wouldn't date someone at work." Rebecca yelled at her boss and pushed him away in anger. Naturally, there were a lot of hurt feelings after being rejected. Spencer was still fuming over the incident, and he made it a point to remind the woman of his wrath whenever possible. Rebecca had wanted to leave her job for a while, but didn't want to bother her husband. Floyd was a manager for a construction supply company. Because Rebecca's financial situation was precarious, she could not afford to be a stay-at-home wife on her husband's modest salary. In the meantime, Floyd was notorious for working late and arriving home at an ungodly hour. Rebecca couldn't help but notice that her husband had a distinct feminine perfume odor. However, the man always provided the rational justification, insisting each time that it was merely a ridiculous coincidence. Rebecca, being a young and naive woman, at first believed her husband at face value. But when she found lipstick smudges on Floyd's shirt collar, she knew her husband was cheating on her. Floyd has changed significantly over the years, becoming an intolerable tyrant. 2 days earlier, Floyd arrived home drunk and said right from the doorway, "That's it, I'm leaving you for Pamela. We want to be together forever because of the love we feel for each other." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, but her heartless husband paid them no mind. He continued on with his day as if nothing had happened. After enjoying the dinner prepared by his loving wife, he retired for the evening. Rebecca cried through most of that night and didn't stop until her eyes were puffy and red from crying so much. A lady was currently sitting by the window, pondering her next move. In fact, she was aware that Floyd's new girlfriend was the department head in which he worked. "Obviously, I can't go head-to-head with the wealthy lady. She is well off, driving her own car and living in an attractive Main Street home." The woman reflected, realizing she wouldn't be able to live with her husband for much longer. She turned her gaze out the window to the people who passed by, shivering in the biting cold and seemingly preoccupied with their own thoughts. The woman's attention was suddenly drawn to a peculiar old man. He wore a thin jacket, dirty boots, and worn pants. The strange man's head was covered with a tattered cap that didn't seem particularly practical given the temperature outside. The elderly gentleman was obviously trying to keep warm by stomping his feet. He appeared to be a homeless man who had been thrown out onto the street at the worst possible time. Oh God, he must be shivering. His beard is covered in frost and his lips have turned blue. Rebecca was worried sick about the frail old man. The woman deliberated for a couple of minutes before she threw her coat over her shoulder and ran out onto the street into the fierce snowstorm. "Hello, sir. It's not my place to pry, but why are you out here by yourself in this weather?" As Rebecca got closer to the old man, she asked him. The old man mumbled as he shivered in the cold wind. "Hello, ma'am. I'm actually waiting for my son, but for some reason, he's running late." "Who is this son you speak of? Who's going to come get him if it's this bad outside?" Rebecca thought, desperately trying to hide the realization on her face that he is probably just crazy. A woman practically dragged the stranger inside by the hand and plopped him down in an armchair in front of a blazing fireplace. Then Rebecca gave the old man a change of clothes from her husband so that his wet clothes could dry. "Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate it. There have been dozens of people today who have walked by me, but you're the only one who has offered assistance," the old man said tearfully, and when Rebecca poured a hot cup of tea for the stranger, he took a sip and smiled widely. The grizzled old man introduced himself as Richard Miller. "As soon as the blizzard calms down a bit, my son will definitely come get me. We're going to Chicago together," the old man said, stretching his wrinkled hands toward the fireplace. Rebecca no longer thought Mr. Miller was crazy. As it turned out, he was just an old man who was tired of being alone and sick, so he moved to the big city to live with his son. Mr. Miller stayed at Rebecca's house until noon. After thanking the girl from the bottom of his heart, he got ready because he didn't want to miss his son's arrival. The woman told Mr. Miller to be careful and to feel free to come back if he needed to. Rebecca didn't think that his son would come to get him in such a blizzard. But as soon as the old man walked out into the street, a snow-covered SUV stopped next to him. There were 2 more cars behind them, and the people in them seemed to be bodyguards. When Mr. Miller opened the passenger door, he turned around and took one last look at the house where he had been treated so well. Then he gave a happy smile and got into the big Ford. Rebecca gave the car a smile and a wave as it drove away. The woman was very glad that she got to do something nice. She helped the old man, and that made her feel good. Rebecca started to cry when she realized that the old man wasn't crazy and was actually waiting for his son to come home. The woman was about to close the front door when she noticed a car approaching quickly. The Chevrolet engine roared, straining. To Rebecca's surprise, it was pushing its way through the snow drifts that were blocking its path. The car stopped right in front of her house. Who could it possibly be, particularly in this weather? Rebecca thought as she zipped up her jacket, but when the Chevrolet's driver's door opened, she saw a woman sitting behind the wheel. Her features appeared to be very familiar. "So, are you just going to stand there and stare at me, or will you eventually invite me in?" asked the stranger in a fur coat, smiling. "Is it really you, Diana? What brought you here? I haven't seen you in a long time. Come on in," Rebecca exclaimed, "come in," and cordially opened the door for the woman. Diana was her best friend in Chicago, with whom she always shared her most intimate secrets. Today's visit was no different. Rebecca couldn't hold back her tears as she told her visitor about her marital problems. Diana listened intently to her friend before taking her hand in hers and saying, "Wow, honey, tell me one thing. What are you doing still in his house? So I recommend that you pack your belongings and return to Chicago right away. I now run a small business there. You are welcome to stay with me until you get your own place. I'm renting a lovely house in town. You'll fall in love with it right away. It cost me a lot of money, but that's life. Everything must be paid for." Rebecca smiled gratefully into her friend's eyes before starting to pack her belongings. Diana simply said aloud what the woman had been thinking about for several days, but was afraid to say out loud. And now that she had the support of her best friend, Rebecca felt a surge of strength, an energy that gave her hope for the future. The woman no longer had to put up with the boss's harassment or her cheating husband, who appeared to be completely unconcerned about Rebecca's feelings. Rebecca only needed half an hour to pack her belongings, and she was soon sitting in her friend's comfortable new Chevrolet. Diana encouragedly smiled and started the engine. Rebecca closed her eyes and leaned back in her chair. The woman felt completely calm and relaxed for the first time in days. Rebecca felt she was embarking on a new life, one that would not allow for a womanizer boss and an unfaithful husband. The measured noise of a running engine soon lulled the woman to sleep. She awoke only when the lights of Chicago could be seen ahead of her. Rebecca was an orphan who spent her childhood in an orphanage, but she loved her hometown, which she knew like the back of her hand. And when the friend took Rebecca to see her rented house, she couldn't help but scream in surprise, "Oh my God, this place is so lovely and cozy." "It's a fantastic location," the girl said with a smile on her face. "Yes, it's a nice place. I'm thinking about buying it, and I've already started saving money. I hope to have enough money in 5 years," Diana said as she looked out the window at the beautiful view. Rebecca could only sigh back because she felt bad that she would be living for free with her friend. Diana, on the other hand, didn't want to hear anything about it and insisted that Rebecca stop worrying. Don't worry, settle in, relax, come to your senses, and only then start looking for work, her friend advised, patting Rebecca on the shoulder in support. Despite Diana's advice, Rebecca began looking for work the very next day. She began calling businesses and offices to see if they were hiring. Unfortunately, finding a good job was not easy, and Rebecca's search took a long time and effort. Someone knocked loudly and persistently on the door one day while she was on the phone with yet another potential employer. Rebecca opened the door, wondering who it could be, and saw a delivery man holding a letter. After she had signed for the package, the woman saw that it was for her. Rebecca carefully opened the envelope and took out a sheet of stamps in typescript, quickly scanning it with her eyes. The woman exclaimed in surprise, "Oh my God, this can't be happening." Rebecca then read the bank notice again, and it stated that a bank account had been opened in her name. The most surprising aspect, however, was that the account contained 6 zeros. Rebecca initially assumed it was a mistake, so she went to the bank, where they confirmed it. But the woman was even more surprised to learn who opened the bank account in her name and deposited the large sum. Alan Miller, the son of Richard Miller, the man she had helped a few days earlier in a terrible snowstorm, was the woman's mysterious benefactor. Rebecca couldn't contain her emotions after learning who made the deposit, and burst into tears in the bank lobby. The woman couldn't believe that there were still kind people in the world. Rebecca had no idea Alan Miller was a millionaire whose father's health was more important to him than money. He had no idea his elderly father had left his house in a blizzard and was unable to return. He was, however, very impressed by Rebecca's actions in assisting the elderly man while everyone else ignored him. Rebecca soon used the money she received to purchase the house Diana was renting. She wanted to repay her friend for her generosity, so she bought her friend her dream house for Christmas. Rebecca put the rest of the money into her own business, which she had hoped to start for years. Rebecca never goes a day without thinking of Mr. Miller and wishing him eternal health and happiness for providing her with such a wonderful opportunity in life. So, friends, I believe that kindness is the key to resolving many of the world's problems. What are your opinions?